Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. This case we're covering tonight, which we've covered the last couple of nights, it's sort of baffling, but we have some new information today, and that's 21-year-old Teresa Youngblood, uh, who is alleged to have shot and killed Border Patrol agent David Malland in a car stop. A lot of bizarre things about this. Her and her 21 or 22-year-old boyfriend, Felix Buckholt, uh, were under surveillance for about a week from Border Patrol, and the FBI got involved. So obviously there's something to this case. And we have some new information tonight that will sort of make some sense about whether or not they were involved with, we can't say radicalized, but they certainly were involved with the wrong kind of people. And we're going to give you that information, and I don't think anyone will disagree when you find out what the information is, that they were involved with some bad people, And she also apparently was reported missing by her mother in May of 2024. But we all know that when you're 21 years of age or older, actually even less than that, 18 years of age or older, and you go missing, unless there's some foul play alleged, the police are not taking a missing person report because you're an adult and you're allowed to come and go as you please. So we're going to explore some of that and explore also, who is she and what made her do this? And I don't know if we could jump right to that, to what made her do it, but we're going to try. Anyway, folks, hold on to your hats. Hold on to your toupee, your wig. Hold on to your opinions till you hear what we have to say. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now, a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, to NHL and UFC. BetOnline is your number one sports betting source for the new year. Every touchdown to three-pointer and hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, folks, I told you that I was going to give you some new information in regards to this, and the new information is thus. And of course, this is a picture of 20-year-old Teresa Youngblood in the thumbnail on the screen. And who is the deadly border shooter who shot and killed Border Patrol agent David Malland? The woman who allegedly opened fire at U.S. Border Patrol agents in northern Vermont, leaving one agent dead, used a gun bought by someone who was a person of interest in a double murder in Pennsylvania. This is according to federal prosecutors. The woman, Teresa Youngblood, was riding in a car with a German national, Felix Buckholt, when Border Patrol agents pulled them over to conduct an immigration inspection on January 20th. At some point during the traffic stop, Youngblood, we believe, who was driving the car, fired at the agents, prompting at least one to shoot back, and that's according to court documents. One of the agents, David Chris Malland, age 44, was killed in the exchange of gunfire. Buckholt was fatally shot after he drew a gun, court documents say, and Youngblood was wounded. The court documents do not make clear whether Malland was struck by one of the bullets Youngblood fired or shot from a fellow agent. The shooting occurred on highway in rural Orleans County, about 20 miles south of the Canadian border. In court papers filed earlier Monday, federal prosecutors in Vermont said Youngblood and Buckhold both possess firearms purchased by a resident of the state in February 2024. That person, who was not identified, is a person of interest in a double homicide in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Buckhold flew into the U.S. in the hours, before the Pennsylvania murders. Prosecutors also said that Youngblood has been a frequent contact with an individual who was detained during the investigation in the double homicide. The individual, also a person of interest in a murder investigation in Vallejo, California. This is all according to federal prosecutors. Prosecutors all asked the judge to keep Youngblood in jail, alleging that she is a danger to the community and a flight risk. They noted that her primary residence has not been established and her ties to Vermont are unclear. So, originally a peaceful interaction between the United States Border Patrol and the occupants of the vehicle became confrontational based on the defendant's conduct, and she then unnecessarily and inexplicably escalated this to a deadly violence, they said in a court filing. So why this 21-year-old woman fired at Border Patrol agents and caused the chain reaction which had them return fire, killing her alleged boyfriend, this is unclear. But these are some of the facts and circumstances that we know now that we previously did not know. Joining me tonight is my co-host, retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary. Mike, welcome.
Bill, good evening. Thank you for having me on. Good to see you.
Mike, what do you make out of this now? Now there's a reason, perhaps, that they didn't want to be found out. They carrying these guns that were used in potentially 2 murders.
Yeah, Billy, that's a really eye-opening development, because you wondered, why would they turn something like a routine stop? Because remember, they had dealt with the Border Patrol previously, a couple of days or like maybe a week previously, when they were questioned about their what are they doing, what's their presence. Now suddenly they're getting pulled over. You would think that if you've got really nothing to hide, and you might just try to, but you're nervous, you might try to just kind of be cool, relax, see if you can talk your way out of something. The fact that she decided at some point after the car was pulled over, she decided to get out and shoot it out, just shows you where her mindset was. She knew that if the police really began looking at what was going on, that whatever ammunition and weapons she had were unlawful, and she probably knew that the firearm she had would probably land her in prison for a conspiracy to commit a murder, because she that's possession of a weapon. She probably knew all about it, where it came from, what it was involved in, and she didn't want that. And she took the desperate last-ditch idea that she could possibly come up with and just shoot it out like a Bonnie and Clyde, and made things 10 times worse, killed poor Border Patrol agent Mayland. The boyfriend gets killed. Buckhold gets killed also, and she's left to be the only survivor. It's very strange, but it just goes to show you she knew that the jig was up for her, maybe personally, and also for whomever owned that firearm.
100%. Someone just asked a good question. Oh, GenMac 2403. Is the FBI involved because of the federal government, or is this something bigger? GenMac, I think it might be something bigger. When you have 2 murders in separate states, well, one in Vallejo, California, and one in Pennsylvania, you question, who is this guy? And why would a person that potentially was involved in 2 murders sell the firearms used in those murders to 2 unsuspecting young 21, 22-year-olds? That's a question I have, Mike.
Yeah, and you wonder they're not releasing his name, which is strange because they know who they're looking for. This isn't some mysterious man who's just a shadowy figure in the background somewhere. They know who this person is. He was questioned apparently about one of the homicides already at some point, and he's wanted across the nation, California and in Pennsylvania, as a person of interest in two murders. So there's at least three bodies attached to those firearms in two separate states. You just wonder, at this point, what is her relationship with him? And is it possible? Is it possible he was the person that was mentioned as being an older male that her parents thought she was involved in somehow? You just wonder at what point did she meet this guy before or after meeting Felix? What was Felix's involvement with this man? But yeah, she inadvertently or perhaps intentionally began a relationship with someone who is a desperado on the run. It's an amazing story.
I just want to point out, folks, people may ask, well, how do they know it's the same gun? This is how. These are what's called, you see on the right side, extractor marks. That is unique to the firearms, to the spent shells they undoubtedly found on the scene, because it's been reported that these were 380 semi-automatics. And then you see the firing pin impression. All of those things are unique to the firearm that fired these rounds and ejected these spent shells. The ballistics test will go into a database called AFIS, which stands for IBIS, Integrated Ballistics Identification System. I almost confused it with the automated fingerprint identification. IBIS stands for Integrated Ballistics Identification System, which is a national database. So they put these through IBIS, and boom, it hits to these two murders. That this gun, apparently, it must have been the gun that Teresa Youngblood fired, because the boyfriend apparently never got a round off. So the gun that she fired and allegedly killed Border Patrol agent David Milan, was used in two other separate murders. Mike.
Yeah, and the thing is, since we know this is a hot gun and this gun was involved in murders, one in California and one in Pennsylvania, I'm really lacking to try to figure out why the FBI is not giving us the suspect's name. Why isn't he? Remember what happened with Luigi Mangione? That went out all over the entire country. Everybody had a picture of this guy, several pictures with a mask in the back of the taxi cab, one at the hostel. And lo and behold, in a small little place called Altoona, Pennsylvania, he was captured. This would be the kind of thing I would think that, okay, maybe this guy is desperate and dangerous, and Luigi was no less desperate and dangerous. Put this guy's name and likeness out there. Let the public see this. Get a million eyes on this person, because this person wanted for these homicides isn't, I don't think, any less dangerous than Luigi Mangione was before he was captured. Put him out there. Get the public, help in this, because he's out there somewhere.
Absolutely. Frank Marsha, I'm just hearing about this. Why did she kill this agent? I've been very busy the past 4 days. Frank, obviously she and her boyfriend were involved in some nefarious activity. They were being pulled over by Border Patrol. They had all kinds of weapons. They had some other things in the car, laptops, cell phones that were covered in aluminum foil. They were up to something. We don't know, and the FBI hasn't said what yet. But one of the big hints now comes back that the gun she used was involved in 2 murders. Let me play this at a local news station.
Teresa Youngblood and German national Felix Bockholt used in the shooting came from a person of interest in a double homicide investigation in Pennsylvania and another homicide investigation in California. Last week, Youngblood and Bockholt were pulled over by Border Patrol agents in Vermont after they had been under surveillance for nearly a week. Police say the car was pulled over after a Border Patrol agent discovered Buchholz appeared to have an expired visa. Court documents show the pair were carrying tactical gear, guns, and other suspicious items inside the car registered to Buchholz. Prosecutors say during the traffic stop, Youngblood pulled out a gun and started shooting at agents. Youngblood, Buchholz, and agent David Chris Mayland were all shot in the exchange. Buchholz died at the scene. Agent Mayland died from his injuries at a local hospital. Youngblood was taken to Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, where she has been receiving treatment ahead of her initial appearance in court today. That underway this afternoon, and we will bring you more as we learn it. She is facing 2 federal gun charges, and if convicted, she could be sentenced to life in prison.
You know, the other strange thing, and we commented on this last night, is that why is she not being charged with murder? A murder in the first degree of a law enforcement officer, and that could also be why it's being charged federally. Border Patrol is a federal agency, thus bring in the FBI. So this immediately becomes a federal case, Mike.
Yeah, and as we saw in yesterday when we did the show, someone mentioned in the chat that possibly this was a domestic terrorism kind of scenario. That these two may be involved. If they're in some sort of conspiracy with this other person, that's 3 people involved. They've got the like the ballistic outfits with the bulletproof vest. They've got the ballistic helmet. They've got rounds of ammo and a 380 automatic. While they're not, loaded down like they're going out on patrol in Vietnam looking for people with hundreds and hundreds of rounds, they are dangerous. They're the match for any law enforcement, civilian law enforcement agency. It's possible that this other person is part of a terrorist organization, or at least part of a very serious criminal organization. And these two got involved. Again, whether it's inadvertent or whether it's intentional, they're not to be trifled with. And then you're sitting there saying, okay, what have they done? What are they doing? What are they planning on doing? This is probably, I would imagine, a homicide investigation involving both California, and to see if maybe she was ever in California, maybe Felix was ever in California. What were the dates and the times? Do they match up with this other suspect? And also, who were these suspects? Were they just drug dealers, and this is some sort of like a cartel hit or some gang hit, or whether that one of them may have been a target as an act of terrorism, like we talked about the Luigi Mangione case, that it might have been, depending on how you see it, it's regular cold-blooded murder or it's more of an act of terrorism. So we want to know these things, and it could be actually a group that was maybe planning on some sort of act of terrorism.
Mike, according to the Toronto Sun, they asked the question, who is deadly border shooting femme fatale Teresa Youngblood? The young woman accused of triggering a shootout that left the U.S. border agent and her alleged accomplice dead was kind and thoughtful, according to an old friend. Now Teresa Youngblood, 21 years old, is lying in a New Hampshire hospital, charged with assault on a federal law enforcement officer. More charges are expected when she appears in court. She should actually be charged with murder. The shootout Monday on I-91, about 32 kilometers south of the Canadian border, came following an investigation into Youngblood and her traveling partner, German national and former University of Waterloo math whiz Felix Buchholz. Killed in the firefight was U.S. border agent David Chris Mayland and Buchholz. The feds allege Youngblood started the shooting. This is not just shocking, it's beyond shocking, a former classmate, Zane Nagel, told the Seattle Times. In high school, Teresa was kind and thoughtful. At Lakeside School, Nagel and Youngblood were in the orchestra and quiz bowl, studied computer science at the University of Washington. According to the Seattle Times, Monday's tragedy was the culmination of a 7-month slide. The newspaper reported that her concerned parents called cops in May to report Youngblood missing. Her parents feared that she was in a controlling relationship and not allowed to contact friends and family. The Times reported that Youngblood had packed her belongings. In addition, she took her passport and medical records and packed them into duffel bags. Youngblood then sent a goodbye email claiming to have moved in with a pal and changed her phone number. A Seattle police report said she told her parents they would no longer be able to contact her. The family told neighbors that we've learned that there is a man that might be involved in this situation several years older than their daughter. In November, the Times reported Youngblood filed a marriage license application in King County, the county Seattle is in, along with a man 22. They listed the address of a condo, however, there is no record of a marriage in King. What happened with Youngblood and Buckhold between November and January isn't clear. But in rural northern Vermont, they had drawn the attention of locals who told cops about the pair. So, not so baffling to, for example, her parents who reported her missing. They sensed something very bad was occurring. And is this similar? And again, if we stretch it out, maybe we can't say she was radicalized, but maybe we could say she met in with the wrong group of people, as our parents used to say to us. And so much that when she was pulled over by the Border Patrol, she didn't hesitate to shoot and kill one of them. Like, where did that come from this sweet little 21-year-old who was a computer whiz and graduated from a high school in Washington State and was known as a very sweet girl? Where'd that come from, Mike?
Yeah, Bill, this is far from that girl from high school. Somewhere along the line, she met and came up, or maybe it was online meeting in a chat room. Who knows? She may be someone who's a lost soul, doesn't know what she wants to do. She's bored. She's a computer science person. Maybe she's not in terms of social capital and EQ. She may not be that good. She may have been in some sort of chat room, met with this person who was involved in the homicides on both coasts of America, and fell victim, susceptible to his suggestion. Not saying he's a Svengali or she's, she was kidnapped against her will, but she certainly seemed to fall under his control, telling her family that she's not going to be in contact, taking her clothes, taking whatever she wanted, and telling them, look, I'm not going to be around for a while, and just kind of disappearing off the grid and moving around. That's a symptom of somebody who's got some sort of plans, and they're not going to be in one place too long. And so mom and dad, don't worry about me. I'm out there. Don't worry. And she gets involved in this. And then you get this third person, that the person that she was involved with, that seems where she filed the marriage license, that was the older guy. Where does Felix fall in all this? That's what I wonder. She's a computer person. He's a math person. They're brainiacs in certain ways. And yet they both somehow get involved with this third person. And to the point, they're willing to just shoot it out like old time gangsters with the police. Shockingly quick fall from what you would consider someone who's a success, going to college, studying. We saw this a little bit with Luigi Mangione. It wasn't long from the time he quit his job to the time he does the shooting. It's like say 8 months. Doesn't take long, but that downward spiral to at some point deciding we're going to shoot it out. That's shocking to people because you're not expecting that sort of thing from a young lady.
Second Amendment, Jeffrey, German national as in the U.S. illegally. I don't think he was in the country illegally. He went to the same high school as Teresa Youngblood. So I don't know where this German national thing came from. And then apparently he went to college, and so did she. He was a math whiz in college, and she was a computer major in college. That also leads me to believe that they had skills.
Yeah.
That perhaps a subversive group would have use of. Mathematics and a computer whiz, and then they had all of these cell phones in their car that they were attempting to cover up with aluminum foil, laptops, and some weaponry in their car. So what did they have planned? Scott Messerschmidt in the chat. Was the gun brought on the black market? Did someone buy it without background check? I know a guy used to sell them. No, they bought it from this guy, from a guy they knew that is the number one suspect in a double murder in Pennsylvania and a double murder in Vallejo, California. So they know where she purchased it from. But the strange thing is they're not telling us. Maybe they don't have the strongest case against the person of interest, I hate that expression, but
Right.
that's what they say, the person of interest in these two double murders. So, but they do know, and we showed you before, that the gun was matched up through ballistics. And they know that the gun that Teresa Youngblood shot the officer with, and it's confirmed that she's the shooter based on the court documents, that the gun's been matched up to those two murders. So it's a 380 semi-automatic that they bought off this unnamed person of interest, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, it's a strange thing because you get two people who are really bright, and this is where they end up: one dead, one in the hospital, handcuffed to the bed. I think the thing about Felix being a German national, I think Border Patrol said that they suspected that he, as the owner of the car, was on some sort of student visa, and that he overstayed his welcome, or he was in some sort of violation. That's where I first read that, that maybe they wanted to check out his status to make sure that he was here legally and actually following whatever restrictions there were. I think that's what the first initial first initial reports we had about him being something strange about him being in the United States and who he was. That's where I think it came from. I'm not sure.
Mike, it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense because he went to high school here.
Yeah.
So how was he this German national? That's what's getting confusing here. One of the things is inside the car here, the Toyota Prius that was registered to Felix Buchholz. And apparently when they were pulled over, Teresa Youngblood was driving. And they pulled them over allegedly for a border stop, like an immigration stop. So through running the plate, because remember, the hotel people where they were staying reported them as suspicious.
Right.
They were wearing tactical gear. Teresa was wearing a mask over her face so as not to be identified. So those were strange things. So the Border Patrol had them on their radar. They were definitely on the radar of the Border Patrol, and they were checking them out. So when they did get a search warrant for the car, they were concerned that there were bomb-making materials and possible bombs inside the vehicle, because they actually had robots respond to the scene to make whatever was in the car, packages or what other electronics, to make sure they were safe in case they would blow up. So there's so much they're not telling us, because they were obviously concerned with these two, so much that there's also reports that there was more than one law enforcement vehicle on the scene when they were stopped. That's been reported in a couple of different places, but not confirmed. And what everyone, of course, wants to know, how many shots were fired? It's been reported that one Border Patrol agent fired 7 shots. And that Border Patrol agent took out Felix Buchholz, killed him, and also shot Teresa Youngblood. That's what's believed, based on the ballistics that were on the scene. Unknown how many shots Teresa fired. We don't have any idea. It's been reported that she initiated the gun battle between Border Patrol and herself, that she initiated this violence. When you look at that face, she looks like a little kid, right? But how many other little kids are deadly with a firearm in their hand, a firearm that's potentially been used in 2 other murders. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. If you like real crime, true crime, you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed, hit that red subscribe button on the screen. Give us a thumbs up. Hit the like button. Share us with your friends and your family. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. We also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels, and you can support this channel by becoming a YouTube channel member and supporting the Police Off the Cuff family. This channel is growing all the time, and we appreciate all you guys that have been supporting us. So, Mike, again, new information, but not all of the information to get us, to put us in the right direction. Just from not even us being law enforcement officers, anyone hearing this story, you know, the old expression, something is rotten in Denmark here. Something is not right here. And amazing that she comes out of the car when she was driving and just starts shooting. That to me is unbelievable. I can't really understand that, Mike.
Yeah, that's hardcore. That's hardcore. And she made a snap decision to just not, give the police a chance to talk to her or to get their eyes on that car, look around as they're talking to her, seeing what's in the back seat. With the Toyota Prius, it's a hatchback, so the police can actually see, unless it's under a blanket, the police, as they walk up to the car on either side, are going to be able to look in and observe what's there. If there's any sort of firearms, anything that looks illegal, the ballistic helmet, other ballistic paraphernalia they might have, like a bulletproof vest, is going to be seen. She was desperate. She made that, fairly quick decision to shoot it out. And she probably, unfortunately, killed Officer Mayland. Probably he was not expecting that, because if you're walking up on the side of that car, and you're not stopping that person because they committed a robbery or a homicide down the block, you're going to see it. You're going to see it as a very different kind of car stop. And then, the first thing that comes out is her firing. He may have been caught, totally by surprise. And the other officers that were there, shot back. I'm thinking that second car, if there was indeed a second car as reported, I would imagine it's a Vermont State Police car that might have been there, rather than a second Border Patrol car. But that would make sense, because wanting to stop this car, they may have wanted some backup.
Mike, listen, they knew about these 2. They were under surveillance for a week.
Right?
So to me, this had to be a felony car stop. So, and I don't want to criticize law enforcement for how they approached, but if I was approaching this car knowing what I knew about them, I would have my gun out in my hand, and I would have had them put their hands on the dashboard.
Right.
I wouldn't have let them get out of the car until I'd let them get out of the car under controlled circumstances, not okie doking in it. And I'm not criticizing the officers. I'm just saying how I would have made this stop, knowing what I knew about them. It would have been, put your hands on the dashboard, don't move, one at a time. You have your partner cover the guy in the passenger seat. You put your hands in the air, 1 foot out at a time, step out of the car. And then, you give the person a quick pat down. Same thing with the other guy. And then, if you felt threatened, throw cuffs on him. And, someone say, oh, that's not under arrest. I don't care. If my life is threatened, I'm throwing cuffs on him, and I'll apologize to them later if I don't find any contraband or guns or anything that would put them under arrest, and I'll void their arrest. That's all. But see, you notice I did 27 years. I'm still alive, So the tactics I used worked. And, I was in citywide anti-crime. We pulled hundreds of cars over, and some real bad people. I almost used a bad word to describe them. Some real bad people. And, look at when you see this young lady. I mean, who would not be disarmed by that innocent little look? And here she gets out of the car and shoots a border patrol agent dead with the 380 that apparently was used in a double murder.
Yeah, that is the most strangest part of this story is like, where does she fit in with that murder? Was she just a person who inadvertently bought a firearm that she probably got cheap from this guy that maybe she knew something about or very little about? Or did she buy the firearm knowing where, what it had been used for, what the history of the firearm is? Because she's fallen very quickly from a kid who's a really smart computer person, and Felix is a really smart math person. That fall to where they are right now was really quick, really decisive, and very strange because it happened so fast. She does not seem to have any sort of criminal record that we know of. No idea that she was a juvenile delinquent, a troubled kid that had displayed any sort of violent tendencies in the past, no assaults, nothing whatsoever, no threatening behavior towards anybody in the past. You would describe her and Felix maybe as like, oh, I don't know, computer geeks, wirehead people, that's it. You would not expect them to go to this level of violence this quickly. And that's the shocking thing. Where does she fit in this double homicide suspect between California and Pennsylvania? We'll get the answers soon enough, but it is a really strange puzzle right now.
Foot Lewis from the chat. Gee, they could have just been exercising their right to wear body armor and to bear arms, and a bunch of anti-gun freaks called the cops on them because they don't know how to mind their own business. Foot Lewis, that's the most ridiculous statement I've read in months in the chat, because obviously they weren't exercising it. They killed a border patrol officer. And by the way, you spelled wear incorrectly. You spelled it W-A-R-E. It's W-E-A-R. So, that's a ridiculous statement. I thought I would point it out. Yeah, they were exercising their right, and then they shot and killed the border patrol officer. Is that their right to do that, Mike?
I have to say, they brought on the attention themselves. When you're walking around in black ballistic outfits with like a Kevlar vest, and you're carrying your firearm openly in like a shoulder holster, and you're wearing a mask. Now, I believe in the Second Amendment. I have a firearm. I have no problem with anybody else having a firearm. But when you're displaying a firearm that way, wearing that type of clothing with a mask on, and when you're in the hotel lobby trying to register for a room with your boyfriend, he's not saying a word, and the hotel clerk says, "Could you pull your mask down?" And she says, "No, absolutely not." And the clerk is so scared and just says, okay, whatever. Here's the room key, and ends up calling the police. You've gone farther than the pale. You've gone past the pale of acceptable behavior under the Second Amendment. You seem to be a very threatening presence. And at that point, I think more than anything else, that's what got them in trouble. If she had just had the firearm openly displayed and she's wearing jeans, or she had a shoulder holster, and she was very civil to the person, that would have been fine. There probably would not have been a single phone call made. But the fact is, the way she dressed and the way she carried herself and the way she spoke to that person put everyone on edge immediately. And as a law enforcement officer, that is somebody who needs to be checked out. And I believe in the Second Amendment. I have a firearm, but that person needs to be checked out.
Mike, Nancy Smith in the chat. Who is she working for? How many are there in her cell? How many other cells are there? Was this a sacrificial cell? Nancy, we can sort of hypothesize that they were up to no good, that they perhaps were involved in a group or were being recruited by a group to do some bad things, but we don't know that for sure. So we can't use the word cell. We can't use the word, we're wondering if they were radicalized, because there's two 21-year-olds, perhaps the male, Felix was 22. Both seemed to be very smart. Felix was a mathematician, had a math degree. and supposedly was like a whiz in math, and she was a computer person. And as I said earlier, those are skills that radical organizations would salivate over having within their organization. And then add to that the body armor, the weaponry in the car, and both of them carrying 380s. The one that was used to kill the Border Patrol agent was used in a murder. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, we don't know the full story yet, but we can surmise from experience, and we've seen many terrorists over the course of years, what they call lone wolves, small groups, larger, better organized groups. We've seen this in Sacramento, we've seen this in Dallas, we've seen this in New York, we've seen this, upstate New York, we've seen this all over Florida. When you find out some of these people may be acting one or two alone, some tiny little group, or they may be part of a large group. But the fact is that that firearm is wanted in two separate localities, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, at least 3, possibly 4 bodies attached to that firearm before this shooting. Now there's a 5th body attached, and poor Border Patrol agent Mayland is the 5th. That's got to tell you this is they're fallen in with some sort of organization, small or large, but that has an office or contacts on both sides of the country, and that's a scary thought.
I even though I don't agree with a lot of things that are said in the chat, sometimes I have to read them. And sometimes I'm amused by them, like this comment. Banana Hammer, you guys blame everything bad on the Mexicans, yet you power the cartels with the millions of guns you've sent there for years and wonder why they're now killing you. Laugh out loud. Banana Hammer, we haven't even mentioned a single Mexican in this entire show, and you just threw it in from left field. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. First of all, Mike and I are both retired NYPD sergeants, and we have fond memories of Mexicans. We have good interactions with Mexicans. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Are you talking about the United States government? I think you got to study a little bit, brother, because, you're throwing out a lot of nonsense there. Super Squirrel reminds me of Luigi Mangione wearing a mask. Well, people wear masks because they want to conceal something, obviously. Viv Photography, some people can be smart in academics, but stupid with life and common sense. Viv, 100% correct. It seems like everyone these days, everyone has a damn PhD. There's more PhDs out there than there are cab drivers, and it's just unbelievable. The academic heretic. In my past, we had a special watch on the useful idiot Caucasian students who supported AIM. What a coincidence that Biden commuted the sentence of Leonard Pelletier, AIM and murder of 2 FBI agents. I'm not sure, Mike. What does AIM mean? I'm not even sure.
It's from the late 60s, early 70s, the American Indian movement.
Okay.
And they came to real prominence at the siege of the Wounded Knee Reservation back in 1973, I think it was.
Nina Chandra, one of our favorites. I get irked when people say it's my Second Amendment right. Okay, yes, but have you seen how many mentally ill people that shoot and kill people for no reason? Nina, you're right. That does happen quite often in this country.
Right.
And with rights, you have responsibilities, and some people don't have the mental capacity to have responsibilities that come with those rights. Seashell Mac, I grew up in Moses Lake, moved to Oregon nearly 20 years ago. It's crazy to read all the bad things go on in my hometown nowadays. Mr. Wonderful, if a cartel had someone she didn't want to lose, or even the threat of it, we're leaping in a way. Footloose, Nina, so gullible, believe everything they feed you. Footloose, something you got to be also respectful in the chat. Jane C, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. Very much appreciated it. Schmitty, I'm thinking there are no more border cities now. We all are. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't want this. We don't know. We're jumping to conclusions that this is about the border, that this is about something. This could have been a radical group. We don't know yet. We don't know, but now we know a little bit more now than we knew yesterday. So we don't. We're not just conjecturing or hypothesizing and theorizing, as they say. Schmitty, stay strong, Sergeant Bill. Thank you, Schmitty. Thank you for your support. We Mexicans love police off the cuff. TG, thank you so much. That's very nice of you. Banana Hammer, it's just funny to me. You're a detective, but I can detect why she may have done this. I'm just not going to throw out conjecture when we don't have evidence of why she did it. And that'll be coming shortly. We will have evidence of why she did it. So we won't have to hypothesize and theorize, as we say. Let me play this little short clip here.
Well, Jen, Monica, police have charged a 21-year-old woman from Washington State. Teresa Youngblood faces 2 weapons charges in connection with Malin's death. Now, the FBI paperwork we obtained says Malin pulled that car over because the owner of the vehicle appeared to have an expired visa. That's Felix Baucolt, a German national. He was also in the car at the time. Youngblood was driving the car, police say, and the affidavit states she got out and opened fire on Malin and other agents without warning. It also said Baucolt tried to draw a gun, but at least one Border Patrol agent fired back. It does not name the agent. All 3 people suffered gunshot wounds. Youngblood was the only one to survive. Now get this, investigators had been surveilling the pair for nearly a week. An employee at a hotel they were staying at called police after allegedly seeing them wearing tactical style clothing and the woman carrying a gun. State Police and Homeland Security say they tried to talk to them at the time, but the 2 refused to have a long conversation. They allegedly told police they were in the area looking at property. Investigators say when they searched the car inside, they found tactical gear, a ballistic helmet, night vision goggles, handheld radios, ammunition, and shooting range targets among the items inside. And when the court documents were filed, the 21-year-old was still in the hospital at Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center in New Hampshire.
So is that what, if they pulled you over, Mike, on a Saturday afternoon, is that what you'd have inside your car when you're going shopping for real estate?
Yeah, I'd have a spare tire, a couple of flares, a traffic cone, and a safety vest. That's about what I got in the trunk of my car. Yeah.
Emma from the chat, Buckholt flew into the United States in the hours preceding that Pennsylvania homicide. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania during that homicide investigation. That individual is also a person of interest. Yes, Emma, we had that information. Thank you, though. So right now, but we question if they have all this information, they must not have enough to bring the case down on the person of interest. But isn't it curious that the firearm used in the shooting of the Border Patrol agent matches the homicide in Pennsylvania? Mike?
Yeah, because it's bad news all around for anyone associated with Felix or with Miss the young lady Youngblood. I'm sorry, Youngblood. I got their names mixed up. Youngblood. Anybody involved in this group, it's bad news. You don't want to be associated with them in any way, shape, or form. You're going to be visited by the FBI, people from Homeland Security. And we're not exactly sure where all the pieces of the puzzle fit, because you've got this other person who's an interest in two double murders across the country, and it's going to keep the FBI busy, because there is absolutely now you got a national case. It isn't just a local case, in terms of Vermont and New York. No, this goes across the country. And whatever her part was, she was desperate enough to hide what she was doing from the police to actually shoot it out with them. And that's the scariest part, is that she was willing to shoot it out and lay down her life in this kind of a situation. So there's got to be a lot more to this than right now meets the eye.
Keith Mead from the chat, the Open Vallejo article explains that they were part of a vegan cult. Keith, I didn't see that article. I don't know if that actually has anything to connect the dots within this, but I'll definitely look up that article after the show. Donna Douglas, why did they draw such attention to themselves? If they addressed normal people in Vermont care all the time, I grew up there. Good question, Donna. Why did they draw attention to themselves? By trying not to draw attention to themselves, they drew attention to themselves. You know, COVID is over, but when you see people walking around with masks, you think that they either think that COVID's still a threat or they're trying to hide something. And in this instance, the hotel people asked her if she would take her mask off, and she refused. So she obviously was trying to hide something, Mike.
Yeah, it's strange because luckily for her, the hotel in Vermont wasn't the hotel person, the clerk was not any more confrontational. I don't know if that would go on in New York, but the lady was quoted in the paper saying they didn't want to press it. You know, they got the money, they gave her the key. They didn't want to press the issue, but they were a little freaked out enough to the point where they called 911. They called the police. And so that was a good thing. We talked about this before. If they had just dressed normally and not had been so aggressive, they would have just flown under the radar. You take a look at Luigi Mangione, that little blue face mask that he wore, that was his calling card. He's still wearing it in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Yeah, if he had actually taken the mask off, he probably would have been unrecognizable to anybody. But there he is eating a McDonald's with like trying to eat while he has a mask on over his face. In a weird way, it's laughable because he drew so much attention to himself by trying to hide. It's very remarkable.
Absolutely. Carly, member for 17 months, Sergeant Bill focuses on fact, not speculation. Carly, thank you so much, and thank you so much for supporting the Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories show. We really appreciate you and all of our subscribers and friends here. Simi Sharp, I wanted to see your comment. Chat has gotten weird. I'm not sure everyone is on the same page, and I don't think they're listening to Sergeant Bill and Professor Mike. Simi, I love this. I like when people disagree with us. I like when people bring in other opinions. As long as they're respectful, I have no problem with it. You know, I used to teach college, and many people didn't agree with my opinion, and Mike still teaches college. And, you know, you get thicker skin from A, being a cop, and B, being a professor, and realizing that many people out there have different opinions than you, and accepting that fact and just rolling with the punches, as they say, you know. Why Sharp? It took me 15 years to go from legal immigrant status to U.S. citizen last year. What the Democrats have tried to pull off to take down this country since 2008 is an utter disgrace. You know, why Sharp? I respect your opinion, but how did we get from this shooting to how did this become about a border issue? I guess because a border patrol officer was killed, but he's a law enforcement officer first. So it's we can't, I don't know. The academic heretic, 2 FBI agents were murdered in 1975. That's the case we were talking about. Where the pardon, yeah. And I know that FBI agents, Bobby Chacon commented, and he was quite upset about that. He was very upset. Tammy Bistarkey. So now this waste will get medical care, food, and housing with our dollars for murdering one of our border patrol men. You know, yeah, I think that the charges they spoke about her being charged with not the correct ones. I think she's going to be charged with murder in the first degree. And the feds, if she's charged federally, she can get the death penalty. Tom Cusinelli. Welcome, Tom. Good to see you. Captain Tom. I'm sure that if a phone recovered, they'll develop evidence. No doubt, Tom, there's tons of evidence in that car, but not just the phones. They had laptops and all kinds of other stuff. So this is what we're waiting to hear in regards. Emma in the chat, Bill sent you more info through email. Thank you so much, Emma. Appreciate it. So yeah, this case is still ongoing, and still they released very little. In fact, I heard the defense attorney said later on in the week he's going to request bail. Like, yeah, right. Well, are you kidding me? She'll get bail, like Koberger will get bail. Mike.
Yeah, she's not going anywhere anytime soon. Don't worry about her walking around your neighborhood. She's not going anywhere. She's got no ties to Vermont. She doesn't seem to have an employment history that we know of. She has no family, no permanent address yet has been established at all. Seems to be because she's lived in a number of places. She is the definition, obviously, of a flight risk. What did she do? She was driving and the police stopped her and she shot it out with them. She could, who knows if she was trying to make it into Canada and end up being a Canadian problem, but there's absolutely no way. She has no ties to the community. She's charged with being involved in a gun battle with police. Yeah. Now she is not going to get
She's
bail.
going nowhere. She's
Yeah.
going nowhere. Nina Chandro, when I was taking my CJ courses, there was a rarity that I disagreed or questioned my professors about any CJ topic. But when I did question them, they explained it to where I was able to understand and agree. Wow. Very, very well said, Nina. But I would disagree with Professor Mike all the time if I was one of his students.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Why sharp when you come from the old continent run by elites? Shenanigans gives you shivers to see how many Americans have no clue about how precious the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights are. Why sharp? You're preaching to the choir. Thank you so much for your comments. So, this case is early. There's so much more. This was from earlier on when they just made the arrest.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Kiana Burks. We've learned more about Monday's shootout on Interstate 91 that killed 44-year-old David Chris Mayland. Channel 3's Darren Perrin first broke the news on Monday, and he has our update tonight.
Court records reveal Felix Bockholt and Teresa Youngblood are the two involved. Bockholt, a German citizen who was in the U.S. on a current visa. That's according to the FBI. The pair stopped in Bockholt's Prius on Monday for an immigration inspection. Police found a Washington state ID at the scene belonging to Youngblood. We now know that Agent Mayland was not alone. He was with other agents during that traffic stop. Within 15 minutes of the stop, shots were fired. Court paperwork reveals that Youngblood fired a handgun towards border agents when she got outside the vehicle. It's not clear if she shot Agent Mayland, who died from a gunshot wound to the neck. At least one agent returned fire. It's still unclear who. Bockholt was killed. Youngblood was injured. She faces at least 2 federal charges in connection with the shooting. We asked why she's not facing murder charges. During a search of the suspect's car, investigators found multiple guns and ammunition, cell phones, laptops, and tactical gear, including night vision goggles and body armor. Some cell phones were wrapped in tinfoil. We do know that the 2 suspects were under surveillance by federal authorities for nearly a week before the shooting. And sources say there's a third person who was involved with the duo at some point. The whereabouts of that person, unclear. This is a photo of one of the suspects obtained by Channel 3 of when they checked into a hotel in Newport days before the shooting. Police were tipped off about them when they were seen with guns and tactical gear in other parts of the Northeast Kingdom, according to investigators. Police previously tried to question them. They said they were in the area to look at real estate. Nothing in that interaction warranted an arrest. Sources tell Channel 3 News they were involved in high-level crime. We know the FBI is leading the investigation, including a special agent who investigates computer crimes, fraud, and criminals trying to infiltrate networks. Sources tell us Youngblood is expected to be arraigned in federal court on Monday. In the newsroom, Darren.
So that was saying they were involved in high-level crime.
Mhm.
Could part of that crime be computer-related crime,
Right.
since they had all of the tools necessary to do that? And were they being used for their academic and computer skills to accomplish some of these missions that maybe a subversive group was using them to accomplish, Mike?
Yeah, Billy, and you get somebody with that level of computer skills like Buckholz had perhaps they're looking to download some information and change an identity, get it, that sort of thing. Because it would help if they had a couple of different sets of ID if you're going to travel around and commit criminal activity, maybe to commit some sort of fraud, banking fraud or whatever it happens to be, computer fraud. So that would come in really handy because you could then have a different ID. Maybe you could also make some money out of it. But yeah, those skills are very, very marketable. And if I'm them, I'm somebody who wants to make money like that, or I'm them, and I'm involved in some sort of criminal activity. I'd like a second identification, some ID papers, so I could kind of throw out one, become another person, and disappear, into the United States somewhere. Absolutely, very, very marketable.
I mean, again, it's pretty clear that they were working for someone else. They were not just independent contractors here.
No.
Someone was using them for whatever, whether they were brainwashed or whatever made them do this horrific act is just, it's not a commonplace thing. And they had no connection whatsoever to Vermont. Vermont was, what brought them to Vermont?
Right.
What you think? You really believe they were looking for real estate? I think not. I bet you they had no idea where they were in Vermont. Were they heading to Canada? These are all questions that we have. Curiously, Teresa Youngblood had no criminal history, and neither did Felix Bockholt. So what made them do this 360-degree turn from law-abiding young college graduates to killing a Border Patrol officer? These are some of the questions we have. Folks, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button on the screen. Give us a thumbs up. Please hit that like button. That's how YouTube shares us out. And we want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We have so many more questions in regards to this investigation. And as it comes out, it seeps out, I think we're going to understand some of what occurred here. But for now, there is still, we have more than we had last night, but there's still a mystery here. There's still something going on. You overuse the word nefarious, but something's going on here, and it involves more people than these two 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, Mike.
Bill, and it was whatever they were up to, it was bad enough that they needed to shoot it out with law enforcement in order to try to protect themselves, protect their secret. Because you got to know, between all the cell phones and laptops, there is a lot of contact information and a lot of communication between them and other people. And that may be the weak link, because if with all that information, the FBI can now come up with other people in other states and their identities, who they are. We don't know how large the network may be. Maybe they were doing some reconnaissance in Vermont, maybe as a hideout for the future. You never know. But they had no connections with that state whatsoever. So it is kind of weird that they end up there for a number of days, and they were there long enough for the police to get a beat on them. But we'll know more in the coming weeks, I'm sure.
100%. Folks, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm sure, Mike, that was your final thoughts.
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. As we get more information that will change this case, we will 100% bring it to you, but we'll bring it to you from a police perspective, which is from our perspective. I want to thank everyone who was in the chat tonight, everyone that hit the like button, everyone that subscribed, everyone that gave us a thumbs up. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff on behalf of myself and Professor Mike Geary. Have a great night, everyone, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.